This is the Heart of Singing podcast, the place where passionate singers and vocal coaches of many different styles will share their passion about the wonderful art of singing and making a career with their voices. I'm your host, Henry Crescini. Now, let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Heart of Singing podcast. I am Henry Crescini, your host, and this is episode 6. I hope you have been enjoying the podcast so far. If you have never heard or watched, then you can still do that, and you can subscribe to the podcast, anchor.fm/the heart of singing. That's where it is hosted, but you can follow on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Apple Podcast should be coming sometime. It's taken a while, but it doesn't matter. I'm still available on all these platforms, so thank you for your support if you have been listening so far. And if you don't know the podcast much, or if you don't know it at all, and this is the first time you're listening or watching, then welcome. And today's guest is a very sweet lady, Christina Booth. She's the vocalist of the progressive rock band Magenta, and she has also released some solo material, and she has also done some other work. And progressive rock is a music genre that has been very much male dominated. And that's why I like to interview singers like Leslie Hunt, who was my first guest on episode 2, and now Christina Booth. I hope I will get a hold of some other female vocalists, because it's an interesting way of approaching things when male-dominated music has been sung by women. And she will talk with me about how it has been, how she came to this kind of music, and how she found her way, and what she has done to keep her voice in shape, and all this stuff. I hope it will be interesting for you. So without further ado, I leave you with Christina Booth of Magenta. Enjoy. Welcome, Tina. May I say Tina to you?
Yes, of course. Yeah, everyone calls me Tina.
Yeah, welcome to the Heart of Singing podcast. You are known as the singer of the prog band Magenta. And prog music.
I am.
Progressive rock music is usually, or has been for decades, known as a male-dominated kind of music. I know this guy, this guy, Ray Wilson, who sang with Genesis? And he has always told this story that Genesis told him when they released Follow You, Follow Me, that's when women started attending their concerts. Before that, it was only men. So, but you are the second lady I interview for this podcast who sings with a prog band. So how is it for you? What brought you to sing in this kind of style?
It was totally by chance, really, because in my early years, I was into punk music. So that was around about the same time that prog was quite big. So progressive music totally passed me by, and I was too busy going to see the Damned and the Clash, and pogoing up and down in the mosh pit. And
did you have the? You have the
I did. I had a little red Mohican at one point.
Mohican, yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, which my mother was not very impressed about, I've got to admit, because I was about 15. So she didn't think that was a good idea at the time.
I can imagine.
But yeah, so I got into prog really through Rob Reed, because we started off back in the 90s doing songwriting together, but that was sort of pop music really. So and it was only when that kind of ground to a halt that he just said to me one day, do you want to put some vocals down on a studio project that I'm doing? And so I said yes. So I went up, listened to these songs, and I thought, because one of them was White Witch, which is from Revolution's the first album.
Yeah.
A very long song, and I looked at him and I said, I don't understand. I said, what was So for me to be able to learn that sort of, a really long song, I just had to break it down into little sections, because I was used to 3-minute pop songs. So, it was a bit of a strange one. But yeah, that's how I came about getting into prog, really, was through Rob Reed.
Okay, but so you have a pop background, but you were aware of this progressive kind of music that was going around, because punk was also going against prog, in a way, right? And so you were aware of this, but you had no interest in this kind of music somehow, or
No,
did
not
it
really. I
come?
mean, I would listen. I was quite open to listening to, if I heard a song and I liked it, then, I wasn't that sort of blinkered that I wouldn't sort of appreciate something. So there were songs going around at the time that I probably would have listened to and enjoyed, but no, the actual whole progressive scene just, totally passed me by.
Oh, okay. So it was like a baptism of fire when Rob presented these songs to you, and you were like, well, this is like extremely long and it goes through so many
Yeah.
phases. Well, that's interesting. And that was supposed to be a studio project, but then it became an actual band, an actual live band with concerts and so on. How did you go about
Yeah.
that? I mean, you were approached for a studio project, but then suddenly you were like, oh, okay, there are concerts, there are more albums, there are live albums, there are videos. How
Yes,
was?
yeah. Well, that was it. But we recorded the album, and then I didn't hear off Rob for a while. And then he contacted me the one day and he said, how do you fancy doing the Revolutions album live? I said, well, yeah, I'm always one for grabbing opportunities for performing live. So the first gig that we did was Baja, the festival, and that was the first gig, which was big, really, for us. So we had a couple of rehearsals which were disastrous. They were just they were awful. We sounded like a school band. It was really quite bad.
Wow,
And in my
I
head I was
cannot
thinking,
imagine with such great musicians. But
I know it's funny, isn't it? Because I remember looking at Chris Fry and we just sort of both, raised our eyebrows as if to say, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? But yeah, it just suddenly all clicked, and we did a couple of very small gigs originally in local pubs, just to do it in front of a small audience, and then we went straight over to do the Baja Festival then. So that was really quite intimidating.
yeah, Baja Prog in Mexico, that's like a pinnacle for many bands, and that was one of your very first gigs. It's amazing. It's like, oh yeah, let's get started with Baja Prog already. Why? Wow. I have yet to see you at the Night of the Prog here in Germany.
Yeah, we did play. When did we did do that? I'm sure.
Yeah, but I
Is that the
wasn't.
Lorelei?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Lorelei. I wasn't in
yeah.
Germany
So that
yet.
yeah, that it was quite a few years ago. So yeah, I mean, we'd love to come back and play it. So I think we have tried to get back on, because it was a great venue and great audience. So that would be something we'd love to do again.
So you found yourself in this position of being the front woman of a prog band without the previous experience of fronting a band, right?
Yeah, well, we had with the pop sort of writing that we'd done with a band called Tripper, originally, we had gigged that. So I was used to doing live performances, but not, we didn't gig a lot. So I suppose I was quite inexperienced from that point of view.
Okay. And now you were in a situation where, prog fans are very demanding when it comes to the quality of the music being played. And for you as a singer, so we go a little bit into the topic of singing itself.
Yeah.
Did it pose a challenge for you to kind of be at that level that you could deliver the things that the fans were expecting to hear live? And did you have to like develop a vocal routine for yourself? How did you go about that?
Well, I think ignorance is bliss, as they say. So I originally I don't think I realized at the time what you just said really was that there's this quite a high, expectation and standard that you need to be to please the prog fans. I think, they're obviously used to very, very talented musicians. And yeah, I suppose I did have to develop a bit of a routine of doing regular singing, just because of the length of the songs and the complexity of them sometimes as well. And I was pushed a little bit out of my comfort zone with the vocals, with some of the vocals that we did on some of the songs. So yeah, because I'd never had any formal training initially. I just realized that I could sing one day and, just opened my mouth and people went, oh, that sounds quite nice. So it was something that I didn't ever really realize that I could do until I was, I suppose, early 20s, something like that. It was something I discovered late on.
Oh, late on, okay.
Yeah. But of course, you said, and for, the gigs were quite demanding with the length of the gigs that we did, because with the pop stuff, maybe we would do a 45-minute set. And then with some of the prog gigs we were doing, then we were looking at, sort of 2 hours, and, it's quite demanding vocally. So I realized then that I was to look after my voice. I was going to have to make sure that I was singing properly, I suppose. So, yeah.
Okay, so what did you do about that?
Well, not much initially. Like I said, I just worked on the fact that I was rehearsing and that I was singing the songs anyway, but didn't ever really think about whether my technique was okay. I mean, at the end of gigs, there would be some gigs where maybe I would be a bit hoarse, which obviously I was thinking, probably wasn't a good thing. But it was a while before I then decided to just take some vocal tuition, just to make sure that I was actually singing correctly, to try and protect my voice. I was reluctant to go down the proper. I did go to a proper vocal tutor. She, in fact, Louise was her name, and she initially was Charlotte Church's vocal coach when she was very young, just when she started getting, famous. So I don't know, are you aware of Charlotte Church?
I am not.
Okay, she's a Welsh singer. She was very young when she was discovered, operatic voice. And what I didn't want to happen was for me to have vocal tuition and then to lose the character in my voice, because a lot of the time when you're taught to sing prop, it's all got to be, the posture's right, and you have to form the the shape of the mouth has to be right. And when you're a rock singer and you're sort of
exactly,
bent over on stage and or straining, and so I didn't want to. I wanted to protect my voice, but I didn't want to lose my voice, and become something else.
I think that's one of the reasons why many rock singers don't like to take formal instruction, because they all think they will be turned into something they're not. And proper vocal instruction should be about helping you find your own voice, but with the correct basis. And well, of course, there are vocal coaches who actually do the opposite and then actually do change the singer, but that's not the actual goal of it.
No, that's very, very true. It is, and sometimes it's good to have somebody to push you to sort of stretch yourself, because you don't always appreciate what you can do until somebody sort of almost makes you do it, because I found when I was having the vocal coaching from Louise that, she was making me sing songs or making me choose songs that maybe I wouldn't have thought about, and that I surprised myself then with, I just didn't think that I was going to be able to sing them and do them justice. And then, I discovered new things about my voice. So that was like you said, that's the whole point, isn't it? You're trying to discover more about what you can do without being turned into something else. So.
Exactly. And so you received this instruction, this tuition, and then you realized, okay, now I have a proper basis. So how did that reflect in the in your work with the band afterwards? Did you feel a difference when you went live? Like, oh, okay, maybe I'm warming up now, and then I'm not hoarse after a show. How was it?
Yeah, well, it does, and it also gave me the confidence, because part of why I started having some lessons as well was because of that. I started developing a bit of a cough after singing, after recording in the studio, which I was a bit concerned about. But at the time, I didn't realise that I had thyroid problem, and that can sometimes affect your voice. So, but I'd lost a lot of confidence. I was in the studio with Rob recording. I think we were recording 7, and I was having some issues. And then, of course, you get that sort of, once it's in your head, you're anticipating the fact that you're not going to be able to reach that note. So as you're approaching it, you're already sort of, you know, in your head, you're thinking,
here it comes, here it comes.
It's like footballers. I mean, you know, they always say that the footballers get injured when they go in for a tackle, but they don't fully commit to it. So they sort of go in for a tackle, and then they'll pull out, and that's when there's an injury. And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of the same thing with your voice. And it's such a, as you know, it's such a physical thing.
Yeah.
That you know, you have to commit to sort of to getting that note, or as soon as you start pulling back, that's it. You've you know, you're not going to get there.
Yeah, but then you developed more confidence, right?
Yes, yeah. So that was part of the thing. It wasn't so much that I felt that I needed coaching on how to sing, but I just needed somebody to give me a little bit more technique to work with, and then to overcome that sort of mental block that I started to develop then.
Yes, singing is not just about the organic instrument, but it's a lot with a lot of mindset, I think. Because,
definitely.
And people, most of the audiences always expect you to be able to sing as perfectly as possible. And the difference between being a singer and being a guitarist is that, well, a guitarist, you can maybe mess up, like, whoops, wrong note, okay, but I make the best of it. But with the voice, if the voice cracks, everybody will notice.
Yeah, yeah.
And
there's no hiding.
Exactly. So, how has touring life been for you? I mean, you haven't done like the really long tours like these massive bands do, but you have had several gigs in a row, different places. Did you develop a routine, a sort of routine to go about this traveling and stuff, and still being able to perform properly?
Yes, I mean, the longest thing that I've ever done wasn't with Magenta. It was when I did backing vocals and my solo stuff with Pendragon a couple of years ago, and I, you know, jumped on the tour bus with them and did about sort of 11 dates. And I was really quite nervous about that, because I'd never had that sort of, you know, stretch of gigs with Magenta. It always was like a weekend thing. We'd do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and, you know, 3 on the trot, and that would be it for a while then, because Magenta have never been known for sort of gigging much. So when I did the Pendragon tour, even though it wasn't me up front singing all the time, you know, it was still every night, it was still quite challenging, and I was doing the backing vocals, and I was doing a half-hour sort of solo set at first as well. So that was going to be a real tester for me to make sure, you know, that my voice was okay, and it was, and I was very pleased with that. But yeah, it's something that I'd love to do with Magenta. I'd love to do a proper tour, because after that 10 days, I could feel the difference in the strength of my voice, and
Yes.
So I'd love to know just how much my voice would improve if I had a real shot at doing, you know, a tour.
Okay.
Be interesting.
What about your solo music? You have mentioned it already. So you have 2 solo albums, right?
Yes, yeah, 2 solo, and I'm working on a third at the moment, but due to the whole COVID situation, as we all know, yeah, I haven't been able to get up to the studio to sort of finish that off. They're still in the demo stage at the moment.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the other thing as well that I would love to do is, because I've only done sort of launch gigs for the solo stuff. And I think part of it was, it's quite hard to, I've watched Rob over the years coordinate and try and get the gigs together, and same with Rachel for Pendragon. You know, there is such a massive amount of work involved putting gigs together, as you probably know as well.
Yes.
It's like, you know, and trying to coordinate everything, trying to get musicians together, and it's like trying to herd cats, you know. It's sort of
Yes.
grab them here, come back here, we haven't finished yet, and so it's really quite difficult. So yeah, but I'm part-time in work now, so that would be something that I feel I've got a bit more time, so I'd love to work on doing some gigs, solo gigs at some point.
Okay, so we can expect new music from you soon.
Yes, yeah.
I want to make the classical, the cliche question about your influences. I was surprised when you told that you were into punk music, because when I first heard you, I was like, wow, this voice is so crystal clear. So I was thinking you would be listening to bands like Renaissance, maybe, or some of that stuff when you were growing up. Did you have like singers that you looked up to, that you admired, that you kind of emulated, even if unconsciously?
Yes, yeah, I think so. I mean, one of my favorite singers, and I think it was because there were albums in the house my parents liked, was Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh,
so
nice.
I listened to quite a lot of Ella Fitzgerald. Annie Lennox was somebody that I loved her voice. I still do. And a lot of the female vocalists that I liked, because, you know, the vocalists like Kate Bush was around about the time as well, with the punk scene, I suppose. But so, and people like Debbie Harry, Patti Smith. There were a lot of, you know, Susie from Susie and the Banshees. There were a lot of female vocalists that I really liked, all quite different. But I used to listen to a lot of the old stuff that my mum and dad had as well. So Denise Williams was another vocalist as well that my mum used to listen to a lot. So yeah, I suppose, like you said, you don't realise how much you are influenced by something, especially when you're growing up around something. You know, you don't realise that you're even listening to it sometimes. But
Right.
I suppose, yeah, a lot of the older singers I love. Yeah.
Okay. And your music, Magenta's music, your solo music, you are one of those artists who are not on the streaming platforms. Is that a conscious decision? Because it's usually an issue with many, because of, you know, the pay model, which is highly questionable, and all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Rob has the final decision on that, to be honest with you. So from my point of view, and I know he's got his reasons for it, because that's how he earns his living, you know. And like you said, it doesn't pay very well for the artist at all, really. You know, the benefit of the streaming is that you can get it to a wider audience. I don't really know. I think Rob likes to keep control of the Magenta catalogues, and to be honest with you, I do understand his reasons for that. A lot of people I get a lot of messages on Facebook from fans saying, why aren't you out there? Why can't we find your music on these sort of platforms? But yeah, I always say really that they should give Rob a ring and ask him. I'll pass the buck on that one.
Well, at least you are on Bandcamp. And
Yes,
that's a good possibility to stream the albums and buy them directly from the artist. How do you feel about this current trend to buy digitally rather than CDs? I know prog fans love their albums, CDs or vinyl, like they love to have them in their hand with the booklets. And I've been like that, but I'm going more into the direction of having less stuff. And so I like to buy my music digitally these days, with some exceptions, of course. What's your take on that? Are you like the vinyl collector, CD collector?
I quite like having the physical thing, but I think you've got to move with the times as well. And I can totally appreciate why, it's so handy to have, thousands of songs on your phone, or, it's great. You've always got it with you. And that's not a bad thing. I think it's, it's brilliant that you can access anything at any time. And I think that you just have to go with that. There's no point in trying to fight, technology and progress. You've got to embrace it, I think. And also, people, maybe the last year has been different because people have actually had a lot more time to do things, and I think we've all had to slow down. That's one thing that the pandemic has done, is that it's made people slow down. But I very rarely listen to a whole album. I'm forever sort of just grabbing the odd track, or maybe there's only 2 or 3 tracks I like on an album, so I'll just download those rather than have the whole thing. But I still do buy the physical CD as well as such. I haven't got any vinyl, but in the old days, when we were short of money, we just get all our records, take it to the market in Cardiff, and then sell them for a couple of pounds.
Okay. And you mentioned that Rob earns his money with music, so he's a full-time musician, but you are not, right? You have a day job? Or
yeah, I've worked in the NHS for 35 years. So recently gone part-time with that, which has given me more time to do other things, because now I look back and wonder how I managed to fit everything else in when I was working full-time.
I hear you.
So I do a bit more of the music. I've got network marketing business that I do as well, so keep myself busy. And but I'd love to spend more time making music, to be honest, but it still doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day.
Okay, but that was something I wanted to ask you about, this work-life balance. You are married and you have a part-time job. You have you have the band Magenta. You have a solo project. So how do you manage to do all these things and still remain calm, kind of not being burnt out or something?
It can be difficult. I think I was getting to the stage before the pandemic hit. Actually, I was starting to get to the stage where you get these moments in life where you just feel a bit overwhelmed with things, because you suddenly realize that maybe you've overcommitted to things, because I don't like to say no to people. If people,
that's why I got this interview with you.
No, I would have wriggled out of it if I didn't want to do it. I was very glad that you asked me. It's very, very nice. But no, I think sometimes that you can, I just don't want to miss out on opportunities as well. So I quite like, meeting new people, doing new things. So I tend to say yes to things, and then maybe all of a sudden think, oh my God, how am I going to fit all this in? But you've as you get a bit older as well, I think you learn to, you do have to learn to say no at some point, because unfortunately you can't commit to everything. But yeah, it is all about, you've always got to leave a bit of space for yourself. I love exercise, I love training. I don't go out running as much now because my knee's a bit dodgy. But yeah, and I love doing the garden. So you've got to have those little periods in the day where you do something that's totally, takes your mind away from the sort of how hectic things can get sometimes.
Yeah, and we know that current times are hard on everybody, regardless where they work, what they do. I mean, and you work in the health sector, so it's quite a challenge, right?
Yeah.
To keep your balance.
Yeah, I work in a cancer treatment centre now. I was in the big teaching hospital, the University Hospital of Wales in Cardiff, and they've had a really tough time of it. But a year ago, I moved over to this hospital where, yeah, it's a cancer treatment centre. So we were actively trying to keep COVID patients out, whereas the hospital I used to work in, they were taking them all in. So I actually had a bit of an easier time of it than my colleagues, I think.
Okay. And do you sing every day while you're doing all of these things, like running, but you don't run so much anymore, but doing things in the garden or around the house or whatever? Do you actually take your time to sing like a vocal
This
practice,
is
or do you just let it flow?
I do practice. I've been starting to practice a bit more. I'm very lazy when it comes to my voice. I think sometimes because when something comes, and I don't mean this to sound sort of like I'm boastful, but when you can do something and that comes easily, you take it for granted that you're always going to be able to do it. But obviously, as you get older, your voice does change. And I do vocal exercises. I've got something on my iPod. I downloaded years ago. There's a vocal coach called Brett Manning.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, I mean, not him personally, but I know that the program Singing Success.
Yes, yeah. So that's what I use, because I find a lot of those, you do all the old and all those things,
Lip rolls.
When the neighbours look through the window, when they look and they can see me sort of, going, they probably think I'm crazy. But yeah, so I do vocal exercises. I try and do them every day, even if it's only a quick 10 minutes, to be honest. But I know now that as we're coming out of lockdown, that things are going to get busy. Rob wants me to do some recordings. He's got some Magenta stuff that he's reworked, and I need to do that. And there's my solo album, so I need to get my voice, because I haven't sung live, as most of us who are in music haven't now, for for over a year. So I'm not gig fit with my voice at all. So I really need to start upping it a little bit. I need to start doing more, definitely.
Well, I think when the time comes when you are able to sing live again, I think that will give you the impulse as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I know sometimes we just need this kind of a little pushing, like, come on, we have a gig. Oh, okay, we have a gig. Let's do it. Right.
No, there's nothing like, I must admit, I am one of these people, I'll leave things to the last minute and then there's a mad panic, but I almost need that to be able to do things, I'm sort of all calm, like, yeah, there's plenty of time. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God.
I feel you. It's like it's not exactly procrastinating, but kind of a little bit, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. No, it is really.
Like, come on, there is time for that. I'm not in the mood to do it right now. And then, oh, okay, time is coming. Maybe I should get started.
Maybe I should, yeah.
Okay. Well, but it's been really nice talking to you about all these things. I look very much forward to hearing what will come new with Magenta, new with your solo stuff. Would you be willing to sing something a cappella for us? For us, I mean for the podcast audience. Oh, it's up to you to sing.
No.
To sing something you would like to present to us in such a format.
Just see, I should have done my vocal warm-up, shouldn't I, before I did this with you now. You're going to catch me out now. Maybe just a little tiny bit from, so the one solo album was called The Light. So I'll just do a little bit of that. I've no idea. I don't even know what key it is in now, but I'll start. It's going to be too much. Okay. I will reach out my hand to you. Oh, will you take it? I want you to. How can you go on when nothing seems right? I want to show you that there is a light. See the light. There we are.
Lovely.
Next.
Without having warmed up, and it sounded lovely. So next time next time you can warm up, and then it will sound.
Give me some warning next time.
Yeah. For the audience, there was no warning.
Thank you.
There was no warning at all. It was like, sing. Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Tina. It's been a great pleasure, and I look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. See you soon.
Bye. So that was it. That was my interview with Christina Booth of Magenta. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you gained some new insight into her career, and I hope you will check her out, and you will check out Magenta and all other stuff. You will find the links here in the video description or in the show notes. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will keep listening. You will tune in next time for my next guest. In the meantime, have a great time, and remember to always sing your heart out. Bye.